people say that you cannot draw a sword from a sheath on your back. Well, I beg to differ. And putting it back? That easy. Yeah!
He's a pretty funny dude.
Greetings, I'm Shad, and as you've probably guessed,
So this is Shad from Shadowversity. If you want to check this out for yourselves.
I'll be exploring the classic trope of wearing a sword on your back, and I'll be exploring the plausibility of it. Can you actually do it effectively? And also, why you would want to. Now, many people in this sword community here on YouTube have explored this thing, wearing a sword on your back. Is it plausible? Is it effective? Is it even possible and stuff like that? And the larger consensus tends to say that no, it was never done historically, why would you want to, and these are all the problems with it. But ever since I did a video exploring the plausibility of wearing an axe on your back, which was like a year ago, the same way Kratos does in God of War, I actually said in that video that, you know, I think there's some things about wearing a sword on your back that actually might make it a bit more logical. So I've been wanting to do this video for a good while, and I'm perfectly aware that a good friend to this channel, Scabbard, has actually made a video looking at this same subject, and what I found really interesting, that a lot of his thoughts married my own. That when you actually look at this from a fair kind of perspective, it isn't nearly as implausible as many people have supposed. And in actual fact, Metatron, our good friend at Metatron as well, has shown ways in which you can draw a sword from your back as well. So there are ways to do this. I really suggest you go watch these videos, because I might reference a couple of things from here and there, but in this video I'm going to be adding a lot more to the discussion, because whenever I've looked at this, you know, carrying a sword on your back and how implausible it is, most people who say that this is impossible is doing it with a regular sheath. But I've always thought in my mind, well, I mean, if you really wanted to do this, you could make an irregular sheath that's specifically made to enable pulling it out and putting it back while it's actually on your back. And that's exactly what I've done right here. I've made a custom sheath that's rough around the edges, all right? So, you know, ignore the rough edges here, but made specifically to hang on your back and to draw. I'm going to show you exactly how it can be done, because my goodness, it's really easy. And the advantage about this is that you can pull the sword out and put it back with one hand. This is significant. Even putting a sword away, you generally need to at least hold the sheath, you know, so you can line up the tip and then slot it in. But with this one hand. Now, there are a few different designs that other people have proposed and even made themselves to make carrying a sword on your back more plausible. There is a half sheath, which is the same kind of one that Scarlegrim proposed in his video, and for myself, I'm not much of a fan of this design, because I just feel that too much of the blade is exposed. These weapons are very sharp, and if someone accidentally brushes up against the blade, they could actually cut themselves inadvertently. There's a really interesting design for a back scabbard in the video game Shadow of Mordor, and I really like that the game developers actually thought about this problem and tried to address it. The middle part of the top 2/3 of the scabbard is actually exposed, and because of the sword's profile, when you pull it out a little bit, the rest of the sword will actually fit through that opening and you can draw it from your back. I even considered making this design, but as I studied it further and tried to assess the practicality of it, though I feel you'd be able to draw the sword quite effectively with this design and the edges are covered and protected, putting the sword away would be extremely difficult and fiddly. And this is also another problem I see with the half kind of sheaths or scabbards that other people have made. Instead, I thought of a different design that you see me using in this video, and I'll explain the functionality and mechanics of this scabbard a little bit later in the video. So the backdrawing methods that Scarlegrim and the Metatron show in their videos are perfectly valid. I think they're very interesting, but the flaw with them is that they're either not full long swords, like what we see here, and they're not full sheaths, because a sheath, or a scabbard, this is technically a scabbard because it's made out of wood, are meant to protect the blade. Now, as to waterproofing, to an extent, unless a sword has an actual rain guard that covers the top, water still can seep down as well. And the scabbard on my back is not 100% waterproof, because if you'll see by the design, there is an opening on one side. So even though this isn't fully waterproof, you could wear a cloak over top, which covers it completely, because in reality, even if you were to have a regular sheath, you would still want to avoid it getting caught in the rain anyway. Because you need to remember that the sheath or scabbard is not necessarily there to just protect the blade from water. You can protect the blade perfectly well by keeping it properly oiled. One of the primary reasons the sheath is there
is to protect you from the blade when you're not using it. It's a very sharp implement, and you don't want to cut yourself inadvertently when handling, moving it around, or when you're wearing it. And as I mentioned before, that's why I don't like any types of sheaths or scabbards that leave parts of the blade exposed. Now, in regards to the scabbard actually filling up with water if you really get caught in the rain, well, it's easy enough just to drill a small hole at the very bottom to let the water drain out. And because this sheath has an internal lining, you could soak that lining in oil, which will oil the blade every time it's put in and drawn out, and offer some very good protection against moisture and rain.
So, how does this scabbard work? Well, I'll draw it in slow motion so you can see from behind. So, you see me grab, I pull, and there we go. See that side opening there? The scabbard actually has an opening on one side, but that's not all. You'll see that it's a bit unbalanced, okay? There's a flatter, wider portion right here. That is actually to help me put it away. So I put the sword there, and then I try and guide it into that opening, and once it's there, I just push it down, and it's in. I've even lined the inside of this scabbard with wool to help cushion it and hold it in, so this isn't going out. I can swing around, and it's not going anywhere. I can test it more fully, but even if I swing this way, right, to try and get the sword to fall out on the open side, it's not, because if I move close to the camera, do you see the top of the sword? I've actually made provision in the scabbard for the point that sits in the middle of the crossguard to lock it in even better. And a lot of historical swords actually had a type of point coming down on the crossguard. And my goodness, just look how easy this is, guys. This is really, really cool. Now, sometimes it is a bit difficult to get the sword back in, and you need to fiddle around, but other times it's really, really easy. And the thing that makes a difference is practice. As soon as you get the memory of where it's going in, because I tell you what, it wasn't this easy to get the sword in the scabbard when I first started trying this. There was a bit of fiddling around, but after a couple of attempts, it gets easier and easier. But that's not to say there aren't the odd times out where I miss, like so. And so, if that ever happens, it's an easy matter to fix the thing just by guiding it in and putting it back. But as you've seen me do multiple times, it's actually very easy to put it back one-handed without needing to guide or anything like it. Using your other hand is just a backup if you miss the mark and it gets a bit fiddly. So this scabbard design works, and it works really, really well. If you're wondering how I made it, well, I've actually recorded the whole process. There's an entire build video on how to make a back drawing scabbard that I have posted on this channel just before posting this video. So do go check it out, and then you'll be able to make your own. Very easy to do. All you need is plywood, a jigsaw, and some glue, really, and you're good to go. And because this is so cool, let's just do it a couple more times so we can appreciate it. Look at that. And then we just want to put it back in. And if we miss the mark, we can just help guide it in like so. But still, this is...
So, yeah. And that's basically make a backdraw scabbard. It's pretty cool. Go watch this other video. Again, this is Shadowversity. Good God. That's way more than what I've got. I've got like 3.